Additional foreword by Lawrence J. Peter. It is sometimes difficult for the discoverer of a principle to identify accurately that moment when the revelation occurred. The Peter principle did not enter my consciousness in a flash of recognition, but I became aware of it gradually over several years of observation of man's incompetence. It therefore seems appropriate I should present the reader with a historical account of my discovery. A clot for every slot. Although some people function competently, I observed others who had risen above their level of competence and were habitually bungling their jobs, frustrating their co-workers and eroding the efficiency of the organization. It was logical to conclude that for every job that existed in the world there was someone, somewhere, who could not do it. Given sufficient time and enough promotions, he would get that job. I was not concerned with the oversight, the slip of the tongue, the faux pas, the occasional error which can be an embarrassment to any of us. Anyone can make a mistake. The most competent men throughout history have had their lapses. Conversely, the habitually incompetent can, by random action, be right once in a while. Instead, I was searching for the underlying principle which would explain why so many important positions were occupied by persons incompetent to fulfill the due ties and responsibilities of their respective offices. Right at the top, the first public presentation of the Peter Principle occurred at a seminar in September 1960, when I addressed a group of directors of federally funded educational research projects. Because each participant had written a successful grant proposal, each had been rewarded by a promotion to a position as director of one or more research projects. Some of these men actually had research skills, but this was irrelevant to their acquiring the directorship. Many others were inept at research design and, in desperation, were simply intending to replicate some oft-repeated statistical exercise. As I became aware of their plan to spend time and taxpayers' money on rediscovering the wheel, I decided to explain their predicament by introducing them to the Peter Principle. Their reaction to my presentation was a mixture of hostility and laughter. A young statistician in the group convulsed with laughter and literally fell from his chair. Later he confided that his intense reaction was caused by my humorous presentation of outrageous ideas, while at the same time he was watching the district research director's face turn red, then purple. Tongue in both cheeks. Although case studies were accurately compiled and data realistic, I had decided to present the Peter Principle exclusively in satirical form. Therefore, in all lectures from 1960 to 1964, and in the articles that followed, examples with a humorous connotation were used and fictitious names were employed to protect the guilty. All rights reserved. It was in December 1963, during the intermission of a badly presented play, that I explained to Raymond Hull why the actor playing the lead was saying his lines with his back to the audience and gesturing into the wings. This formerly competent actor had found his level of incompetence by attempting to be a combination actor-director-producer. In the conversation that ensued, Mr. Hull convinced me that I was not doing justice to the Peter Principle by presenting it to only a select few who might attend my lectures. He insisted that it should be available to the world in book form. He further suggested that without publication and copyright, someone else might attach his name to my discovery. A collaboration was agreed upon and the manuscript was completed in the spring of 1965. Victims of the Peter Principle, the final manuscript was submitted to the editors of a number of major publishing houses. The first returned it with an accompanying letter which stated, "We can see no commercial possibilities for this work and cannot encourage you to continue with it. Even with interdivisional sales, the publication of this work is not warranted." The next editor wrote, "You should not deal so lightly with such a serious topic." Another suggested, "If you are writing a comedy, it should not contain so many tragic case studies." Still another said, "I will reconsider publication if you will make up your mind and rewrite this as a humorous book or as a serious scientific work." 14 rejection notices, and 2 years later I began to doubt whether the world was ready for my discovery. A bit at a time it was decided that if the publishing world was not ready for a book, then perhaps we might introduce the Peter Principle gradually through several short articles. Mr. Hull completed an article for Esquire magazine for December 1966. Later I wrote about the principal for West magazine, Los Angeles Times, April 17, 1967. The response to this article was overwhelming. Over 400 letters were received within a few months. Requests for lectures and articles poured in, and as many as possible were fulfilled. The Selling of the Principle, 1968. In March 1968, the president of William Morrow inquired about the possibility of a book about the Peter Principle. I dusted off the manuscript and handed it to a William Morrow editor. The book, released in February 1969, gradually climbed to the #1 position on the nonfiction bestseller list, where it stayed for 20 weeks. It remained on the bestseller list for over a year and has now been translated into 14 languages. The book has been required reading in a number of university courses and has been the subject of discussion for many seminars. The book has also inspired several serious research projects in investigating the validity of the principle. Each research supports the correctness of my observations. Quit while you are behind. Since publication of the book, I have had many opportunities to reach my own level of incompetence in one giant step. I have declined many offers to become a management consultant and to conduct seminars for business administrators. Although these proposals were rejected, I have not been protected from the Peter Principle. Recently, a school of business administration invited me to give a lecture and then scheduled my appearance in no less than 5 different rooms at the same time. An association of industrial engineers and systems experts asked me to address their convention but misinformed me regarding the date, the time, and the place. Appliances I have purchased still fail to operate, or break down within 30 days, my car is returned from the service shop with mysterious defects, and the government continues to increase the number of regulations which influence my life, while it ensnares itself in bureaucratic red tape. Death is nature's warning to slow down. As individuals, we tend to climb to our levels of incompetence. We behave as though up is better and more is better, and yet all around us we see the tragic victims of this mindless escalation. We see men in groups, and most of the human race, struggling for status on a treadmill to oblivion, escalating warfare and weaponry to overkill the population of the world, escalating production of power and products while polluting the environment and upsetting the life-supporting ecological balance. If man is going to rescue himself from a future intolerable existence, he must first see where his unmindful escalation is leading him. He must examine his objectives and see that true progress is achieved through moving forward to a better way of life, rather than upward to total life incompetence. Man must realize that improvement of the quality of experience is more important than the acquisition of useless artifacts and material possessions. He must reassess the meaning of life and decide whether he will use his intellect and technology for the preservation of the human race and the development of the humanistic characteristics of man, or whether he will continue to utilize his creative potential in escalating a super-colossal death trap. Man, on occasion, has caught a glimpse of his reflection in a mirror, and not immediately recognizing himself, has begun to laugh before realizing what he was doing. It is in such moments that true progress toward understanding has occurred. This book is intended to be that mirror. Lawrence J. Peter. August, 1970.